Hi everyone, this is Tan from Clocked and Loaded, and today I'm going to be making a video about one of my favorite parts of Blood on the Clocktower, which is script building. If you're a storyteller or just curious about how custom scripts get made, maybe you want to jump into making your own custom scripts, this is for you. I'm not going to tell you the one right way to build a script because honestly there isn't one. Many people enjoy different kinds of games when it comes to Blood on the Clocktower. Some people love chaos, others like logic puzzles. What one group might call balanced, another group might call boring. That's the beauty of Blood as a game. What I'm going to show you today is what I believe is the sweet spot for my own personal preference and approach to script building. We'll go through the good and the evil team, character selection, misinformation. We'll build a script together here. When it comes to starting a script, I think you should start with a concept. Maybe some characters that you have a lot of interest in or that you feel like work well together or create some tension together. Here's what I have as my starting concept. I want to make a script with vigor mortis. I want it to be around minions that wake up at night and that can benefit from dying to the vigor mortis. And I want to have an alchemist so that the good team can have a go at playing with the minions as well. I think these characters are characters I'm interested in, and that could potentially make an interesting script. After you have your general concept, the next thing that I want to do is expand on it by thinking about what kind of misinformation am I going to have on my script. When you think about script building, misinformation really is going to be the puzzle. What do your players have to solve in order to get to the truth or the correct world? When it comes to misinformation and Blood, there's a couple different types. Obviously, we have poisoning from the evil team. We also have outsider manipulation. A key problem that the good team has to solve to win the game is how many outsiders are in play. What are those outsiders? Who is a hidden outsider? For example, the drunk. We also have madness, like from the Cerenovis. And we also have sources of misinformation from the good team, like drunkenness, as well as characters that can have an alignment change, or characters who are going to lie. Now, a key point about misinformation is when it comes from the evil team, it's a lot harder to figure out because when you're thinking about it, misinformation and Blood, you have to first figure out what's the source of the misinformation, and then you have to figure out what the misinformation itself is. And when the misinformation comes from the good team, figuring out where the source is a lot easier. All right, let's take a look back at my script here. What kind of misinformation do I want to include? Obviously, I have poisoning already from the Vig and the Poisoner. And I think that's enough poison for my script, especially when you consider alchemists could be poisoning people as well. Now, how am I going to have some outsider manipulation? Well, I think what I want to do is I want to add a godfather. Now, when we're thinking about what types of minions to have in the script, we have to be keeping in mind the alchemist. And I think the godfather works well with the alchemist. You could have the godfather ability on the alchemist potentially be -1, or you could also do it +1. You've got a lot of different options, and I think it's interesting and fun for the alchemist to have the godfather ability. Now, in terms of madness, I do want to include madness on my script, and so I'm going to add a Cerenovis. And that's going to round out my minions, but also my main source of misinformation. Now, I might want to include a few sources of misinformation from the outsiders and the good team as well, but I think this is good for now. Let's round out my evil team. Now, when it comes to building an evil team, there's a few things I'm looking for on most scripts. One is going to be escape hatches. When things go poorly for the evil team? Do they have a backup plan, an ability to pivot, an ability to have a second chance at life? Maybe that's through a character like the Barber or the Scarlet Woman that can switch the demon. Maybe it's through an alternate win condition that they can try to pull off, like the Goblin or the Damsel. Another concept to think about is going to be noise and speed of your evil team. Now, speed is how quickly your game is going to end. And noise is how loud your evil team is. When you have a loud evil team, typically you want the speed of your script to be quicker. You want games to end quickly because loud minions are going to give a lot of information to the good team, and therefore you want to give the good team less time to solve the puzzle. Scripts that have high speed would have multiple kills most nights, and scripts that are noisy with noisy minions would have things like the Psychopath or the Vizier that are almost outed or confirmable evil. On the other side of that, scripts with quiet minions and demons like the Poisoner or the Vig or the Imp are going to be less fast, probably one kill every night. Potentially some nights there will be no kills. The script that I'm looking to build is going to be a medium speed script. It's going to have a good balance of some noisiness, some quietness, and probably one kill a night, but potentially more. But certainly not multiple kills every night. Outsider manipulation is obviously important. This can come from the evil team. This could also come from the good team. But remember, when misinformation is coming from the evil team, it's going to be harder to figure out, right? Because you have to figure out the source of the misinformation first. And then something that I think is really important is diverse bag building, or the ability for the storyteller who's running the script to use any combination of characters on the script. So for example, we want to make sure all of our minions work well with all of our demons, and all the minions work well with each other. For example, you don't want to put a spy with a widow on most scripts. They overlap in what they do a little bit too much, and it's not very interesting. Additionally, I have an example here. You don't want to put the Baron with the Fangu. That's going to be +3 outsiders. Not only is it incredibly powerful for the evil team, but it simply isn't balanced on most scripts. And then you always need a reason on every script to have a way to doubt players who die in the night. It doesn't have to be much, but giving 1 or 2 reasons for someone who dies at the night to be evil is key to make it so that every person who dies at night isn't just confirmed. And then on some scripts, you want to think about, do you want to allow for there to be an extra evil? Now, it's important when you're adding extra evil to a script, 9 times out of 10, that you don't allow for more than 1 extra evil at a time. Because once you start getting to 2 extra evils, the voting power and advantage for evil and their ability to end the game quicker is overwhelming. All right, so to round out our evil team, or round out our demons that we have in play, I think in terms of escape hatches, we have the Pit Hag. I think I also want to add an Imp. So an Imp's not only going to be another escape hatch for evil, but it's going to be another reason to doubt someone who dies at night. And then in terms of the noise and speed of our script, our demons are mostly quiet, and they're going to be complemented by our minions that are going to be a little bit louder. Now, we don't have any outed evil, but the Pit Hag, the Godfather, and the Cerenovus are all louder minions because most of the time after they use their abilities, they are revealed to be in play. The Poisoner is obviously very quiet, but I think the Poisoner works very well with our script's concept. In terms of extra evil, I'm not sure that I want to add an extra evil yet, but we might think about it at a later point. And then, because every script can't just be one concept or one thought, I think I want to add a separate concept. And I think what I really want to focus on is the fun, waking at night, powerful, multi-use minions. And I think to add to that, I want to have a little monster so we can be focused more on the minions. Now, little monster does change every script that it's on, and it's going to give another reason for people to think distrust people who die at night, because the little monster does towards the end of the game have to kill off some evil players. All right, we at this point could have another demon. We also could, because we're focused on the minions, go for 5 minions and 3 demons, but I think I'm going to leave it open-ended for now. Now it's time to round out our evil team by thinking about some outsiders. And yes, outsiders are part of the good team, but when you're thinking about what abilities they're bringing to the game, you're thinking about what does your evil team need. In general, there's going to be a couple different types of outsiders, and I categorize them as this. Outsiders that provide misinformation, outsiders that want to avoid dying, and outsiders that can provide a change of alignment. Obviously, there's some other types of outsiders as well as some overlap, but that's kind of how I view it. When it comes to outsiders, you're really thinking about completing your evil suite of abilities, right? What does the evil team lack? Are you lacking misinformation? Awesome. You could add Puzzle Master or Drunk. Are you wanting to add a way to have an extra evil or a player who's playing for the evil team? You can add a politician or a lunatic, ogre, goon. Does the evil team need an escape hatch? You've got characters like the Barber or the Hatter. Is the evil team lacking solid bluffs? Cool, you can add a character like the Saint. And then you really need to think about how are you concealing your outsiders. Obviously, some outsiders want to hide, and that's going to be a range, right? On one end of the spectrum, you have the Damsel who, if they are found out, their team loses the game. On the other end of the spectrum, you have a character like the Golem, right, who's likely to make themselves known. You also have characters that are happy outing like the Snitch and the like. And then you've got characters in the middle, such as the Lunatic, who, if they knew they're the Lunatic, they'd be happy to out it, but they don't know, but they're likely to figure it out. Or the Klutz, who, if they trust someone, they're typically not horribly afraid to die, and they can even sometimes benefit the good team by confirming another player. Obviously, hidden outsiders that want to hide themselves are not the only way to conceal your outsider count. You've got characters that manipulate the outsider count, like the Baron, for example, and the Fangu. All right, so let's think about the outsiders for my script right here. When it comes to the Pit Hag's play pattern, I don't want them to always just want to turn townsfolk into outsiders and kill them with the demon. I don't think that's necessarily super interesting for what I'm trying to do here. So for that reason, I don't want a Plague Doctor necessarily, even though I think a Plague Doctor would go well with the minion-focused aspect of our script. Instead, I'm thinking I want to have a mutant. I think the mutant gives another source of madness and another justification for why someone might be doing a double claim. When it comes to misinformation on a Blood on the Clocktower script, a really important part of a balanced and good script is not having too many things that can hard confirm. So when a player is double claiming someone, for example, obviously it could be an evil player lying, but a lot of people are going to go to and think, oh, it could be a Cerenovus. I want there to be a little bit even more possibilities for what it could be. It could be a mutant, potentially. So we're going to have mutant on the script. Also, I think an interesting character for this script is the Snitch. The little monster does not get bluffs, so I think the Snitch is a good match with that. It's also a good match for the Pit Hag because the Pit Hag really wants to know characters that are not in play so they can turn people into them successfully. I also think it goes well with the Cerenovis. And it doesn't get utilized as much as some of the other outsiders, so I'm happy to put Snitch on the script here. Now, when it comes to other outsiders, I'm not 100% sure just yet what I want to add. So I'm going to leave it at this for now, and we'll come back. Now we're going to move on to our townsfolk. Now, when it comes to building your townsfolk out on your script, I think it's important to have a complete set of town. What I mean by that is a wide range of abilities, which I will go over now. Starting with Start Knowing Info Roles. Start Knowing Info Roles give town information to work off in the beginning. It's something to do and talk about on day one. They also allow for players to not be afraid to be executed because their ability's been used, and that gives town and evil some buffer room for executions. Obviously, you're going to want some abilities that work in the day, some abilities that work in the night. Daytime abilities, whether they're ones where you privately visit the storyteller or have to publicly claim, give a wider range of bluffing ability to the evil team and the good team, and provide some interest during the day. Obviously, there's going to be a ton of night info on your script, and that's going to look like a various number of things. You're going to potentially want some protection on your script. Most scripts will have some protection. One, it's going to have a way for town to protect powerful characters, and two, it opens up bluffing opportunities for evil. Once per game abilities. The dynamic of having an ability that works once per game and that grows in power when you use it at the right time or potentially save it. For example, the Slayer, you're narrowing down the amount of people who could be a demon candidate for you to shoot as the game goes on. Fisherman, you're potentially getting more useful advice as the game goes on. Seamstress, you're able to, again, narrow down who you want to target to see if you can find an evil candidate as the game goes on. But it's a risk, right? You don't want to die before you use your ability. So it provides a really interesting dynamic. Alternate paths for victory. Again, just like evil wants escape hatches if things start going wrong, good enjoys having a few ways to win the game. Maybe just one per script, but a way to win the game where they don't have to find the demon necessarily, right? Here are some examples here. We also have role confirmation. Now, role confirmation is going to be different than something like alignment checking, because it's not checking to see if a player is good or bad. It's checking a player's role specifically. And that's going to be super helpful in confirming information, especially when something like a drunk is on the script. You're also going to need a townsfolk that helps to solve whether dead players are evil, whether that's players who died during executions, like the Undertaker, or the Minstrel, or players who died at night as well, like the Oracle. And then, of course, you're going to need characters that check for alignment, right? Is a player good or evil? Now, when it comes to solving the game on the side of good, you're not just going to need to figure out what players are evil. You're also going to need to figure out what players are demons and what players are minions. So you want at least a character that helps narrow down demons and a character that helps narrow down or target minions. You're also going to want a character on your script that wants to die at night. Those characters typically want to lie about who they are unless they trust someone, so that they can more likely get killed at night. Potentially, you're going to want some misinformation from the side of good to round out your misinformation suite for your script. Perhaps it's something small like a lycanthrope having a faux pas. Perhaps it's something big like a atheist potentially turning the script on its head. And, you know, these are going to allow evil, again, powerful bluffs, as well as have misinformation that town can more easily narrow down because they know it's in play, which is going to be a little bit less powerful than misinformation coming from the evil team like a poisoner or a baron. And then if your script has the ability to have multiple deaths at night from the evil team, generally you're going to want to have some characters on the good team that cause death, so you can call into question why there was multiple deaths at night. Again, you never want it to be where there's only one thing or one reason that something can happen on your script. If you have a Shabaloth, for example, you don't want that to be the only character that can cause multiple deaths. So you might want to have an acrobat in your game as well, who could potentially die at night. If you've got the summoner on your script, where there should be probably no deaths at night for the first day or two from the demon, then you want to potentially add a lycanthrope. Now there's going to be one death at night. Is it a summoner game? Is it not a summoner game? You want to make it so that hard confirmation only exists if you intentionally want it to on your script. Now it's important to remember that all players in the game, both evil and good, are going to be pretending to be townsfolk for the most part. So you need a range of bluffs for good players and evil players, right? Raven Keeper's a great bluff for a powerful townsfolk who doesn't want to die at night. Soldier is a bluff that a evil player can fall back onto as a reason why they survive so long in the game. Fool's a great example of a bluff that can be fallen into on its home script, Bad Moon Rising, because a player who's DA protected or who doesn't die on the evil team can fall into, oh, well, I was the fool. Village Idiot's an easy bluff for good and evil because you can always be that extra village idiot in play. Steward's a great bluff for evil to start a confirmation chain. They know what players are good and they can pretend to be the steward. You also need reasons for good to lie, right? Whether it's powerful roles that don't want to out themselves because they don't want to get killed or poisoned, madness, possibility of turning to the evil team, wanting to trick the evil team, or perhaps an outsider who doesn't want to reveal themselves when they normally would want to, like a snitch, because there's a Fengu on the script and they don't know if they're going to get jumped to by a Fengu. Oho's another reason for the good team to lie about what roles they are. Maybe make it seem like there's a role in play that's not in play so that the Oho tries to target them. Basically, the game is at its most fun when there's a lot of deception going on and the truth slowly reveals itself throughout the game, rather than when all good players are truthful and 100% honest from the start. It's not as interesting. All right, let's start by adding some townsfolk character to our script here. I'm going to start with characters that I think fit really well with the theme that I'm going with. One of them is going to be the Preacher. Again, giving good some counterplay to the powerful minions that wake every night, giving evil a reason to lie. Preacher doesn't want to reveal themselves, so they don't die and give back any powers that they've stolen. I also think Oracle goes really well here, right? Town needs a way to see, was it a vigor-killed minion? Was it a imp that star passed at night? Those sorts of things. And then I also think this is a really great script for the chambermaid, because we're going to have a lot of characters that wake up every night, good and evil, I'm planning. And I think chambermaid's going to be a good, like, mathematician savant, like small information that you can piece together to confirm worlds. But let's start thinking about what start knowing roles we want to have. I think the most interesting for me here is going to be a clockmaker. Just to help with those vigor worlds. And even I think it's interesting with Little Monster. In terms of additional night info and alignment checking, I think that empath could be a cool one here. Where's empath? There we go. And I think with empath and clockmaker, I think another outsider that I want to add is going to be the recluse. I think that's going to be an interesting minion here. Again, not something that the Pit Hag necessarily is excited to make, but something that could be interesting with our alignment checking here. In terms of an interesting daytime role, again, because we have multiple deaths possible at night with the Godfather, but it's not going to be something that's super common. I think it'd be interesting to add the Gossip into play. It's also giving Town another powerful role, which Evil certainly has a lot of power on the script, so I think that's appropriate. What about an alternate path to victory? Well, I don't necessarily think Slayer's that interesting with Little Monster. I think that's something that I don't like working well together. You know what I think could be interesting, and it's an underutilized role, which I think is fun, is going to be the Cult Leader. Now, if we have the Cult Leader, we don't need the empath, because they really do a little bit of the same thing, but Cult Leader is going to add a little bit of interest, and I think Cult Leader is especially interesting because the Pit Hag's actually potentially motivated to make a Cult Leader next to them, which I think is interesting, or next to another Evil. So we'll add the Cult Leader, and then in terms of role confirmation and more waking up at night roles, let's add the Dreamer. I think that'll be interesting. I like it with Alchemist. I like it with these other powerful roles. And then let's do, just to give another possible reason for a death at night, let's do Gambler. And now that I have Gambler, Gossip, and Godfather, I almost want one other reason from the Evil team for an extra death at night. It doesn't need to be a big one, and a character I was already thinking about was the Oho. So the Oho can cause multiple deaths at night if you choose a character that's not in play, which on this script might be something that you would do to confuse Town with things like the Gossip or the Gambler or the Godfather. And I like the Oho also with the Mutant and the Cerenovis. I think it's very interesting. So that's going to round out our demons. We still need to add some more of our townsfolk here. We need a character that wants to die at night. And we don't have something that helps solve for demons yet. And I think what I want to add is a Sage. I think Sage is interesting with Little Monster, and I think it's an interesting Demon Bane character, or character that wants to die at night for this script. And then I need some protection. And I want a little bit of misinfo from Town, other than potentially the Cult Leader who might turn evil and want to lie. And I think that's going to be the Innkeeper. And I like that the Innkeeper can protect multiple people and give a wider spread of protection for characters that might have died at night from the Gossip or a Godfather, potentially. I think that works better on this script than, for example, a Monk. All right, so Innkeeper can stop deaths. I think we want another character that can stop deaths. And I think we're going to go with the Soldier. And I also like the Soldier because I think Evil does want another strong bluff on this script. And then we need another outsider. And we need one other townsfolk. I think in terms of the outsider, I'm going to go with the Moonchild. Again, we're adding a little bit more death at night than I originally was thinking about, but I'm liking it so far, right? And a lot of it's coming from the good team, potentially, which is really covering for stuff like a Godfather kill. And it's strong. It's powerful towns information that I think is good. All right, now we've got 12 rolls for towns, so we need one more. And let's sort here. We're really looking for one more start knowing roll. We've got a ton of nighttime rolls. We have our daytime roll, protection, some good bluffs, our key player, which is the Alchemist. We've got some alignment checking with Oracle, and we've got some roll checking with Dreamer. I think we want one more alignment checker and a start knowing roll, and I think we're going to toss in the let's go with the Steward. Start a little bit of confirmation chains. All right, so I fully fleshed out my concept now, and I've got a couple different ideas going. Now, once you're at this point in building your script, you're not done, right? This isn't going to be a magical, amazing 10 out of 10 script. You've got a long ways to go still. One of them is going to be playtesting, right? Playing with it, seeing what you're feeling like is lacking, seeing how you feel the balance is. But before we even go to playtesting, what I like to do is take a look at my characters. What interactions do I have that are really interesting? What are some that aren't so interesting together? And a lot of times you can tell some of that by looking at the jinxes. So I have one jinx on the script, and it's the Pit Hag and the Cult Leader. And it's just making it so that the Cult Leader, an evil player who's turned into the Cult Leader can't turn good, which, makes it so that the game doesn't break in certain situations. I don't necessarily think that means Pit Hag and Cult Leader don't work well together. I think they do on this script specifically, so I'm not worried about that. But where are some possible issues with the script? Let's take a look. Well, one of them is the Pit Hag and creating a little monster. I'm not 100% sure how that works. So that would be something to take a look at. But I like that all of our demons are fairly quiet. All of our minions, our poison is quiet, but the rest of our minions are a little bit more medium amount of noise. Our game speed, I would say, is medium. There's certainly possibilities for multiple deaths at night, but not every night, and a lot of it's coming from the good team. Sometimes a Gossip will kill at night. Sometimes a Godfather will double kill at night. Rarely an Oho will double kill at night. Sometimes a Gambler will die to their own ability, but I think all of that looks really good. There's a lot of each night abilities, some that wake on the first night, some that don't wake on the first night, which I think is interesting with the Chambermaid. I really like the Preacher here. I think Cult Leader is interesting here, and I'm excited to see how that plays out, especially something like the Innkeeper who can drunk the Cult Leader. I think our outsiders are Not too strong for evil, but I think they work well in the context of the script. In general, again, questions I would think to yourself when you're at this phase. How are we looking with our core concept? What is our secondary and tertiary concepts? Again, you can't build the bag with the same demon or minions every time, so you need every combination to look interesting. What odd interactions are there? And then another thing I take a look at is where's our stopgap from a storyteller perspective? How much storyteller control does one have on this script? Obviously, Little Monster, creates a lot of control for a storyteller because you're deciding who dies at night. But there's also a lot of agency with the evil team and who holds the Little Monster. You're gonna have, the ability to decide. Gossip kills for sure here. I think deciding what ability you're giving the alchemist is a big ability to balance the script. Same thing with cult leader. You're gonna have to make a choice. But all in all, I think this script looks interesting. I think if I were to come up with a name for it, I would call it Waking Bad. I think that's interesting. To close out, I don't think there's one right way to build a script, but I do think the best scripts come out of working with intention from a general framework. And I think having a clear concept, not just one main concept, but multiple concepts in a script that work really well. Treat misinformation as your puzzle. You don't need too much of it. For example, Trouble Brewing, it has the drunk and the poisoner, and those two things alone allow for every single piece of information to be questioned on the script. Every script needs to have flexibility, and you should, as a storyteller, be able to put any combination of characters into the bag for the most part on every script and have it lead to a playable and interesting game. And think about your noise to speed. If you have a really noisy evil team, you want the game to be a little bit quicker. And most importantly, test it, adjust it, play with it, and when you see issues, iterate. I think most great scripts don't start out, 10 out of 10. Usually they need a couple iterations before they get there. And again, one change to a character can change a script's identity and feel a lot. So I'll drop a link to some resources in the description of the video, and I'll also drop a link to a few of the scripts that I've built if you want to see more of what I've done in my approach to script building. Thanks for watching, guys.